one of the travel experts of all time. He's on, every time you turn on a different channel, I don't know how many shows he has, but Peter Greenberg,
ubiquitous is the
he's
word
traveling,
you're
he's
looking
writing a book, he's here, he's doing secrets of hotels.
Right.
He's amazing. And well, let me give his real bio.
Give his real bio.
Multiple Emmy-winning frontline travel news journalist, investigative reporter, producer.
Frontline, by the way.
I wrote that. I wrote that.
That's right.
He broadcasts breaking news, investigative reports. CBS travel editor, additionally travel detective with Peter Greenberg, the Royal Tour, Ion Travel, and the thing that most people don't
You
know
left
about
out the U.S. Travel Association's Hall of Leaders.
Yeah,
he was in. I didn't know. You can't get into that organization.
No, you can't get out of that
organization.
But here's something about Peter. You ready for this? Watch this. This is a really no really. Because people don't know this about you because it was so far back and they only know you from travel. He was the vice president of television development for Paramount and he helped develop MacGyver. And at MGM, he ran the creative team that developed 30-something for ABC. How about that?
We owe you a debt we can never repay.
Let me know how much that is.
But that's pretty amazing that you started out
amazing.
in development and then how did that go to travel? How did that develop?
Well, what happened was I was traveling all over the world, and good friends of mine were over at Paramount, and they wanted to develop a series about me. And I said, they wanted to take a meeting. So I went over there. You know that.
Yeah.
So I went over there, I had the meeting. At the end of the meeting, they said, you know what? We changed our mind. Why don't you just come over and run dramatic television? So I did.
What? You said that like those.
That's
ends
exactly
connect.
Well, in a way they did because everything I've done is based on fact.
Right.
It's based on real life. And we did it. So the very first show we did, here's a little story. There was a guy do you remember who produced MacGyver?
No.
Okay, made more money for him on that show than he's ever made in his life, but you know him. Henry Winkler.
Really? No.
Really? Okay. Sorry,
Edit it that way.
I'm
Henry,
getting into it now.
And they said...
So they said, we want you to do the 7th season. He said, good, I want more money. They said, we don't want to give you more money because if we give you more money, we have to give John Ritter more money for Three's Company, et cetera. So they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. They said, we're going to give you a blind commitment for a television series, 22 weeks on the air. That never happens. He said, okay, great. He comes back to Paramount, which was a half-hour studio. They only did comedies, all the Gary Marshall shows. And they said, okay, what do we do? So we figured, well, how do we do a show that can air at 8 o'clock at night but syndicate? We came up with, you're old enough to remember Mr. Wizard?
Sure.
All right, Don Herbert for kids. So we created Mr. Wizard meets Indiana Jones. There is MacGyver. And the rest is history.
How many seasons was that on?
Oh, it was on at least 8 seasons, and then they brought it back. They brought it back a couple of years ago.
They rebooted.
Yeah.
And then 30-something?
30-something. Well, that's Marshall Herskowitz and Ed Zwick.
Right.
We made a deal with them at MGM, and all they had done is a movie called About Last Night with Rob Lowe.
I remember it well. I was almost in it.
How many of those can you say?
Many.
Oh, God. Every episode, really,
But
no, really.
It was down to me.
Wait. You were almost in it?
Yeah.
Really? It'd be nice.
Yeah, it was down to me and Jim
We're
Belushi.
at 106th episode. We finally go, you know what, we should brand the
we
name.
have figured it out.
So, yes.
So we put together a deal for them to do a 1-hour series at MGM. By the way, MGM only had one other series that was ever an hour show. You ready? Chips. With Eric Estrada.
I remember it well.
Yeah, were you almost in that?
And Paul Link. No, that was a little before I was...
You almost got hit by the motorcycle. Really? No, really. Yeah. So, wow. So how did you when did you just say, I'm giving this all up?
I never gave it up. My deal at Paramount and at MGM was I had to still be a journalist. So every Friday I left, ran around the world, did my stories. I was back in time for meetings on Monday. And that's how we did it.
Peter. Yeah. And I know Peter for 30 plus years. Can I say where you live? I can't say where you live, but what you live on or how?
Sure.
Peter lives, it's my dream, and you know this, and the only thing that ruined that dream was my family, who said, are you crazy?
You and I have the same
dream.
dream.
On a boat,
Yeah.
and it is a beautiful boat.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I just said, I haven't seen him in a lot of years. Do you still live in a boat? He goes, yes, I do.
Absolutely.
Well, when I first moved out here, I thought, because, I'm new to Los Angeles, and what's your big fear when you're new to Los Angeles? I'm going to die in an earthquake. I thought, wouldn't it be great? We're on a boat. The earth shakes, you're fine, you're on the water.
Hit by telephone
and my
pole.
wife said, you never heard of a tsunami? My wife couldn't be on the
So
boat.
why we wanted Peter in today, other than there's a lot of stuff you're going to learn because I got a lightning round with him. And if you travel, he's given me some of the best travel tips that are so actionable that I use still to this day, and he gave them to me ages ago. But Jason actually wanted to know, the citizens always say when there's a huge election and they're unhappy, or economic times get hard, or what, I'm leaving. How many friends have we had that said, I'm leaving the country. So help me God, I'm leaving the country.
Well, and for a variety of reasons. Now, seriously, some people speculate because they don't like the way politics goes.
Right.
They go, I can't abide it. I'm going to make a change. Some people go, I want to start life over. I want a new, but I'm making
Other
a change.
places are better.
Right. I once vacationed in France. I love it. I'm going to buy a house there. I'm going to live in France. And my thought was, first of all, really? And second of all,
Up, hit the buzzer, yeah.
they make it sound like, great. I have said to my family, hey, if my career really tanks here, we'll go to Australia. They love me.
And I'm Kashkash. My wife used to live in Portugal.
Sure.
We're going to Portugal. We are going to Portugal.
And we say it like, and
Here I
decision
am,
made,
here we
and
are.
pack your bags, here we go. What we want to know is, that's not so easy, is it?
What percentage?
Actually, it's getting easier by the day.
but what percentage?
Really?
First off,
Really?
no, really. But what percentage of people that say it actually do it?
Well, I go back to 1968 when my parents said to me, if Richard Nixon wins, we're moving to Canada. Well, he won. We didn't go anymore, right? And a lot of people are saying that. However, now these countries are realizing they can be economically benefited by having Americans come over. So they're giving you what they call golden passports. And a golden passport is if you invest, you mentioned Portugal. So Portugal had a deal for many years, up until I think last month, that if you invested like $500,000 either in a savings account or you bought real estate, after 3 years you were vested, you became a citizen of Portugal. Dual citizenship, right? Next thing you know, you're living there. So the number of American expats who have left the U.S. and are living permanently in Portugal or London or Paris or the south of France is growing rapidly.
Do they all have a similar trope?
They don't. So they're maintaining double residences, but they're spending most of their time there.
But Peter, I saw a percentage that said, and it's hard to quantify exactly, because we don't know how many people in the country at any given time in the last year said, I'm out of here, and didn't do it. But the guesstimate
I'll give you
was
97% are still
don't. No, it's high. 10%, about 10% actually go through with it. But what I heard also was when they want to go through with it, and you see the amount of paperwork, language barrier, cultural barriers, they start going, it gets daunting.
Well, what's even complicating it more is how many Americans do you think even have a passport? As a percentage of the population.
Right.
You ready?
That's
Go ahead.
really interesting.
41%.
Yeah.
That means 59%, even if they want to leave, they can't, right? And then the crazy thing about the 59% is they actually think it's a great idea not to have a passport. I've got everything I have here I need in Kansas. Really? Goodbye, right? So the point is that percentage that you just gave me is actually less.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But is it okay? Aside from the money,
Yeah.
Somebody having the $500,000 to put in the bank account or to buy the real estate. What else are some of the major restrictions in paperwork?
Because my understanding was, if let's talk about Australia for a second, because I've been to Australia many times. Peter and I
And
went
they love
together,
you.
and,
they love
there's
him.
a nice community there that I feel I would be comfortable. I could make a living there, but if I just decide I want to go, what would my process be? What would I have? What hoops do I have to
Australia's
jump
got some
through?
interesting work rules, and the work rule they have there is you have to basically justify that you're not taking a job away from an Australian.
But that's why I'm going.
No, but you can probably do that because you get a special exemption because nobody can act the way you act.
I got
Oh,
it.
please. Oh, did I say that? I'm sorry.
Hit the bell.
Yeah.
No, but thank you.
Rather hit my co-host.
Really? No, really.
No, but that's what they'll do. If you can prove that you are qualified to do something that you're not going to displace somebody else and that you'll add to the economy, you can make that claim. You could do that easily. You're there.
Off the top of your head, the top 5 easiest countries to leave. and
Well,
go
I'm
to.
going to turn the tables on you guys because the best way to do it is to follow the strength of the U.S. dollar. Where is the U.S. dollar strongest against foreign currencies? So South Africa, unbelievable. Argentina, unbelievable. Turkey, they continue to devalue their lira. The affordability is unbelievable, right? So in terms of cost of living and standard of living, so you pick the following places, right? Cost of living, standard of living, healthcare, access to airports, right? So you have options, right? And not to drive on the wrong side of the road. Other than that, you make your choice. And there are a lot of countries that do that.
So I read that the top countries are UK, Mexico.
More Americans have second homes in Mexico than anywhere else in the world.
No kidding. That shocks me.
Yeah.
That really shocks me.
Why?
Well, and believe me, I know I'm acting from ignorance, and I've been to Mexico, and I had a wonderful time working in
Is
Mexico
that the name of
City.
your new show? Acting from ignorance.
Acting from
Okay.
ignorance. It's the name of
not-
my
by the
book,
way-
actually.
By the way, this is why we said about MGM development.
Right, yeah.
That is not a
It's
bad,
not a bad
it's not a
idea.
bad idea. Acting about
But
that.
what we hear all the time coming out of Mexico is gangs and drugs and lawlessness, and so.
No.
And I know people that are afraid to go to the high-end
All right,
resorts
let
because
me
they go,
explain.
oh, you know.
Listen to this. Don't get me started on State Department advisories.
Uh-huh.
They're misleading, they're wrong, and they paint with too broad a brush. Before Trump was the president in the first term, the State Department advisories were issued in a very haphazard way. They weren't done equally, right? All those years that Northern Ireland was getting blown up, there was not a single State Department advisory there, but you couldn't go to Israel, right? It made no sense. So then something happened. That was called Pan Am 103, December 21st, 1988. And the U.S. Embassy in Helsinki received credible information 4 days before that they were going to blow up a U.S. flagged carrier in the next 4 days. What did the U.S. Embassy do? Who did they tell? They only told other U.S. Embassy personnel. So don't they work for us? So those 259 people on the plane never had a chance. They went down. And when that news came out, that the embassy didn't actually share that information, the needle went all the way over. And then if an American tore a fingernail in Peru, they issued a State Department advisory, right? So it was crazy. And people, and that first four-letter word in the language when it comes to travel that starts with an F is fear. So they hear the words State Department advisory, I'm not going, right? Do you know what the State Department advisory is for Turkey? Americans are warned that Turkish drivers pass on the left and the right. Have they been on the 405? Is that right? I mean, right. The other State Department advisory, which I love, is Indonesia. Americans are warned to stay away from large crowds and avoid buses. I live in L.A. I avoid large crowds and I avoid buses.
Right,
but the reason why I avoid buses in L.A. is in all the years I've been here, I have no idea where the buses go. That's terrorism. I know I'm going to get on a bus and never come back. Right. So you have to interpret these differently, right? So for your friends who don't want to go to Mexico, there are 32 states in Mexico. Right? How many of them are vacationing in Nuevo Laredo or Ciudad Juarez? The only people vacationing there are vacationing American drug dealers. Don't go. Right. You want to go to Cancun or Tulum, or you want to go to Puerto Vallarta or Cabo San Lucas? No problem.
What's the worst place that you've been to? If you said, I'm never going back.
Camden, New Jersey. No, actually.
Hey now.
Hey,
I'm
New
a
Jersey
Jason.
Hall of Fame.
Well, you're from Jersey?
I was living Maplewood and Livingston.
All right,
Jersey.
I'll speak more slowly.
Okay.
Now, the thing, sorry. But bottom line is, if you take the metrics that they use for the State Department advisories and apply them to every U.S. state, you'd never leave home. You'd be barricaded.
But what's the place that surprised you? You've been everywhere.
The Sudan was not fun for me, honestly. I mean, I literally got out with my life.
Wow.
I was deported once. That was fun. From Guatemala.
From Guatemala.
Wow.
Yeah.
What'd you do?
Well, in those days, it was run by a military dictator named Raul Lucas Garcia. And this guy was running death squads in the street. Anybody who was an intellectual, a college-educated person, a lawyer, they were getting knocked down on the streets. And it was run by the army. And I went down there to find out what was going on as a journalist, and I interviewed all these people who were telling me these horrendous stories. And I was trying to get an interview with the president. And so this is where my ego got in the way and I got in trouble. So I finally got the interview with the president after I interviewed everybody else, right? And so the protocol for interviewing the president was you could only ask your question in English, then they discussed it among themselves in Spanish to see who was going to lie to you, and then they give you the lie in English. After the third question, I looked at him and I said, Señor Presidente, me pregunta solamente para usted, ¿verdad? At which point they knew I knew everything. I was immediately bundled up and put on the next plane out. Literally, they didn't even stop at the terminal.
Were you scared? Like, oh, this could be bad? This could be...
Well, I was leaving. Let's put it. I was gone, and they put me up the back. It was funny because I'd gone shopping the day before because all the great antiques were in Guatemala City, right? Because that's where all the Germans went after World War II. You had some great old clocks, and so it's true. So I bought this big, beautiful wooden, clock, and now I'm being bundled onto a plane holding this clock to clock, and I'm going up the back stairs of a Pan Am plane going to Miami. I wanted to go to L.A. Didn't matter. You're leaving. And when I got to Miami, customs wanted to seize the clock. I said, please don't rip the clock apart. But anyway, that's what got up. But when Clinton became president, the first thing he did, he went down to Guatemala and apologized to the people because we had supported that government for so many years. It was terrible. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Yeah. So can I get into some amazing things? This is the one thing.
Before you get into amazing, I don't want to play because you asked about countries, which are the ones to explore, which are the ones to avoid. But what about people who are just trying to relocate within the United States? Is it assuming you have the finances to do it? Is it a fairly easy process for people to move from state to state and set up?
Easier by the day, and sometimes the catalytic reasons are not happy, like the fires here in California.
Right.
But right now, the number 3 and 4 states, or 1, 2, 3, and 4, where people are moving to, will surprise you. Right? Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Nevada.
The only one, actually, none of those surprised me.
Yeah.
Because I know, anecdotally, I know 3 or 4 people that have made the move to Nashville.
Yeah.
2 or 3 that have gone to North Carolina, and a ton that at least have a second home in Nevada.
Exactly. Now, some of that's for tax reasons, but but a lot of it right now is lifestyle because, look, I live in the 2 states that tax the highest. I live in LA and I live in New York.
Right.
I live in the 2 states that give me the worst service, right, with the worst traffic, right? So all of a sudden, this starts to get compounded, and then you have a catalytic moment, God forbid, like those fires. Right. Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
But it's hard. It's hard for people. The biggest thing, when I talk to my family seriously about, we don't really do politics on the show, so it's not about politics, but there is rising anti-Semitism around the world right now, and certainly within the United States. And so sometimes we talk about, what if things got really bad, where would we go? And the biggest reason my grown sons and their families say nowhere is their support community is here. And to drop that and just create another community.
I'll give you an example. I was doing a story in Kingsport, Tennessee. You've probably not been there.
No.
Okay. They've built their own communities, right? I mean, what I'm saying is you bring everybody with you.
And that's a hard thing to do. But what you do have today is with the internet and social media, you can work. It's easier to work places.
Sure.
It's easier to see people, and then they fly in occasionally, whatever. But at least you can connect on social media. So that must make the mobility much
It does.
Much
and once again, it's access to an airport, medical facilities. If you have the infrastructure, it's really easy to do it.
So Peter did a thing for me years ago. I'll never forget this. It was you gave me 2 tips on travel that I'll never forget. One was when you go to the airport, do the opposite. It's like the opposite episode of Seinfeld that you were in.
I'm not familiar.
It's if you're dropping somebody off, drop them off at arrivals. If you're doing do the
I
opposite,
know.
it's easier.
Yeah.
And then
I pay attention to no airport signs.
So
Zero.
that's that. But then the best one is when you go to the airport and you see that your plane is going to be on time, go up to the gate desk. I don't know if you remember. You know what I'm going to say?
Yeah, I do.
And ask the plane that's coming in to pick me up, what's the tail number on that plane? And where is it right now? So if you know that plane's supposed to be here in about 20 minutes and it's in Guam, Peter said, go to the next desk, pick up a phone, and book another flight. It's never getting here.
Look,
and they're not going to change that on the board until the last minute, and you're not going to know.
Departure boards have not told the truth since the Titanic.
Right.
And they were lying then, too.
Right.
More the arrival board on that particular one.
But isn't that amazing?
Let me tell you something. So Peter's sick to death of hearing about my cousin Stephen, who flew for many years.
I have not heard this, so go ahead.
You'll get sick of it too.
When we were in Hawaii, my family and I, as these fires hit.
Yeah.
And now flights are getting. So we get a thing. Your flight is delayed 2 hours, and okay, but please come to the airport on time. An hour before we're going to leave the airport, they go, your flight is delayed 4 hours, but definitely come. So I now call my cousin, the pilot, and I go, what's the story? He goes, what flight are you on? I go, American, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, yeah. Your flight has not left the tarmac in New York. It is nowhere near.
There you go.
And by the
Exactly
way,
the same
when
thing.
you get to, when and if it gets to Maui today,
They'll be timed out.
that's right.
I know
The
the
crew
deal.
will not work, and he goes, you're not leaving today.
Right,
Book
exactly.
another flight.
I carry with me an old, they still publish this, something called the OAG, stands for Official Airline Guide. It's this big. It's like the old Sears and Roebuck catalog, right? But they have pocket editions, but you couldn't put it in your pocket anyway. It lists every published flight in the world. I keep it in my carry-on bag. I don't go on the internet. I don't make the phone call. Something's a problem, I just open the book and I know exactly where I'm going. Wow. Yeah. Because there are secret flights everywhere. You don't know that. I'll give you an example. I was going between Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires. Pick an airline you think I might have flown.
Iberia.
Good idea. Wrong.
I'm not.
Okay. Turkish. Now, what the hell is Turkish Airlines doing flying between Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires? It's a secret flight. The plane starts in Istanbul, goes to Sao Paulo, shuttles down to Buenos Aires, goes back to Istanbul. They have to move the plane.
So those are positioning flights.
But they're called secret flights because they're allowed to take passengers. Okay.
But are they? So how do you find out about a positioning flight where they have
There's
to get
this
the plane
guy
back?
called Peter Greenberg. but the thing is, my airfare in business class on a brand new 777 was $100. So because you could have gone bowling on the plane, right? You want to go from New York to Frankfurt, you say Lufthansa or United,
Sure, right.
No, Singapore. They fly New York to Frankfurt and then continue on to Singapore. The best flight ever. Nobody knows.
So I got to call you to find this
You
out.
always did before.
Yeah, but how does somebody listening who doesn't have your number?
Our website with the most imaginative
You have
name.
all of those
You bet.
positioning flights.
Yeah. And the name, of course, is petergreenberg.com. We had a committee on that. But the thing is, that's the kind of information they don't tell you because they want to sell other seats that are going to give them a higher yield.
This is why we want to do Really No Really Travel.
Which, by the way, and we're having a meeting with him right after.
That's right.
Right after. Okay.
This is exactly
So let's
why.
show.
It's
Let's blow
this
him away.
hidden
Here we go.
world. It's
Lightning
this
round.
travel.
Some of these may take a little longer answers, but this is everybody listening is going to want to know everything.
Okay.
How do you keep your luggage from getting lost? Boom.
Okay. There are two kinds of airline bags. Carry-on and lost. We understand that. So if you're going to be stupid enough to check in a bag, you do two things. Number one, you open up the bag and you take a piece of big masking tape or Gorilla tape with a big indelible magic marker, put your name and phone number on the inside of the bag because conveyor belts eat luggage tags for breakfast. Okay? That's number one. Number two, I love now the air tags. I live for the air tags. I've developed an emotional relationship with these air tags. They tell me they miss me. I love them. And you know what? You can tell the airline where your bag is before the airline even knows. And the third thing is, who told you, where was it in the manual, you had to buy every bag that was colored black, right?
Oh, no, we switched that up.
Ugliest vomit, green and orange for me.
Right.
I remember years ago, I was waiting for my bag at Eastern Airlines. That's how long
Yeah,
this
it's a
goes
while.
back.
Yep.
And who's standing next to me waiting for his bag? Emilio Pucci, the famous designer. I'm like, I can't wait to see what this guy packed, right? Comes around, the ugliest green, vomit green Samsonite
Right.
bag. He looks at me and goes, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, well, I just want to say, though, I'm 65 years old. I've never lost a bag traveling.
Now you will.
So hotel drip pricing. Explain what that is and how to avoid that if you can.
Drip pricing?
Yeah, drip pricing. We're living in a world of dynamic pricing right now. They change the airfares by the hour, by the second, by the minute. And what they're doing is they're going to publish a fare that you think is the right fare. And the next thing you know, they're adding other fees that you didn't know they were being added. And it's a tax dodge, right? So you heard of resort fees at hotels?
Sure.
That's a tax dodge because every city has a municipal occupancy tax, highly taxed. So it's up to 21% in some cities. So if it's a $200 room, 40 of those dollars doesn't go to the hotel. So how are they going to make that up? The stupid resort fee. That doesn't get taxed as an occupancy tax. It gets taxed as a sales tax at 7%. So the hotel retains more of that. But they're not telling you that, right? And what they're not telling you is it's all negotiable because they didn't disclose it in the first place. So you can have that conversation.
I told you. All
I
right.
could just see me rolling up in the Ritz-Carlton going, I'd
You
like to
ever
talk
have
to
a-
the manager about the drip.
But
drip
no,
situation.
if you talk to the manager about that,
Yeah.
guess what? They take it off. It's negotiable.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Oh no. Really? Yes. Show's not called Wow.
That wasn't very decisive.
So if
No,
he's
well, he
really,
doesn't like
the show
it,
should be
though.
called
I'm
tentatively.
trying to be
tentatively,
sensitive.
really. Ticket change fees. You don't have to change a fee to the airline.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you avoid that?
It's now avoidable thanks to the pandemic. United Airlines realized when nobody was flying during the pandemic, don't charge for change fees. So the good news is now, if you book a fare, in the old days, if you booked a fare and you wanted to change it, the change fees were so high, they'd wipe out the cost of the original ticket. Now, it just goes into a credit in your account. The problem is it's only going to be good for a year, so don't let it sit there. It's a bad gift card otherwise.
But you also used to say book one way.
Oh, you still can. In the old days, the dreaded Saturday night stay requirement, they were trying to beat up on business travelers who wanted to leave on a Monday and come back on a Thursday. But if you don't stay a Saturday night, you have to pay 3 times more. So you could beat them at their own game, and you can still do it. I still do it all the time with something called a back-to-back ticket. So let's say you want to go to New York on a Monday, but you got to come back on a Thursday. That's $1,500. But if you book a ticket on a Monday coming back 2 weeks from now, right? That's $300. You book another ticket leaving New York on Thursday, coming to LA, going back 2 weeks later, that's $300. So for less than half the money they're going to charge you for one ticket, you get 2 round trips and double the mileage you can't redeem. Isn't that wonderful?
All right. Book by phone, not online.
Absolutely. Everybody watching me now and you guys is probably going to do their reservations online. They're losers. And the reason why they're losers. Hit the bell.
Boy, he's
Not only is he,
by the way,
innovating the show, he's running the show.
remedial.
And the reason is what you're seeing on your screen is not all the inventory. Right? So what you're seeing is the inventory given to that online travel agent by the travel provider. How many times have you gone on the screen saying only 3 seats left, only 2 seats left? It's a lie. It's only 3 seats left in the allocation they were given. Right? So the bottom line is search online, pick up the phone, talk to a human being. It's a new concept.
But wait, now I want to just clarify.
Yeah.
So I don't tend to use Expedias and kayaks and those kind of things. If I'm booking on American Airlines, for instance, I go to aa.com. Is that true on that website as well?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I wanted to go from LA to Hawaii. Now, everybody flies it, right? American, United, Delta, Hawaiian, Alaska, Southwest. And the fares are all like $858 round trip. Why? Because I'm the only guy on the plane, not a honeymoon couple, right? Okay. So how am I going to get less money? I called a person, otherwise known as a travel advisor, and I said, is there a better way to do it? And she turned the map upside down, and I went LA, Phoenix, Hawaii for $300. Save $500 because there was more availability on those flights, and that did not show up on anybody's screen except hers.
Right.
And you don't mind the extra stop?
For most people, if you're going to save $500 for another hour on the ground in Phoenix, why not?
Gotcha.
What do you never order from room service?
Everything. And I'll tell you why. First of all, it's a limited menu. Second of all, most hotels don't have a dedicated room service kitchen. Third of all, you need an air traffic controller to find your food.
Whoa. When I order from room service in a hotel, where are they making the food? In a cart?
No, they're making in the same kitchen with everybody else. So you're in competition with the dining room.
Oh.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Got it.
Right? And there's not and on a big hotel, a big box hotel with 300 rooms, they can't even find an elevator.
So I'm hungry. It's 11:30 at night. What do we do?
Well, 11. Now we live in the world of takeout.
DoorDash, Uber Eats.
Exactly.
All the other places we want to have them sponsor our show.
Not only that, they double dip on the tip. What they'll do is they'll charge you the room. They'll charge you the meal, then the delivery charge, then the subtotal, then a service fee, and then an extra space for gratuity. They're double dipping. My wife was in a hotel in Chicago, and she ordered a pizza. Right? Not the big pizza,
right?
The little pizza, right? It was the W Hotel in Chicago. We named names. I ended up holding it up on the air. You know what the pizza cost? $51.
I was going to say $46 was
right.
my guess. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Wow.
Then I called Domino's and said, hey, how much for a pizza? $15, free delivery. They deliver it to the hotel.
And the hotel lets the Domino's guy come up to your door?
Or I come downstairs and pick it up.
Come downstairs. What are you, too good? You too good to go downstairs?
I'll go down in my
What's
underwear.
in your room that you were afraid to leave it for a second?
I'd walk to the pizza place to save $50 on my underwear. In the snow, in Chicago. How about that?
That's right. That's what you do.
How to tell if your room is really clean?
Well, short of going in there with a black light, the point is you need to talk to the housekeeping guys, right, before you even get to the hotel. Just ask, who's had housekeeping? Great. What room am I in? Can you please go inspect it? Nobody ever does that.
Wait a minute. As you're checking in, you're saying what?
No, not when you're checking in. Before you even get to that city. A lot of times they'll pre-assign the rooms. By the way, which room do you want? That's the key, right? Now, you don't know this, but I'm also a fireman in New York. I've been a fireman since I'm 18. I never stay above the 7th floor of any hotel because there's not a fire department in the world that can effectively fight a fire.
I saw Towering Inferno.
Yeah, well, they couldn't find it then either.
You don't stay above the 7th floor? Okay,
Never.
all right.
That's number one. If you stay above the 7th floor because you want a great view, you get a fabulous view of the fire department being unable to reach you. Okay. So that's the first thing. But there are 3 questions you got to ask before you get your room key. Number 1, how close is my room to the construction? Right. Because every hotel is in a period of renovation, right? And if you don't ask that question, you have the keys to the jackhammer suite. That's number 1. Number 2, how close is my room to the ballroom? Because at 2 o'clock in the morning, when the Lipschitz wedding is over and they're throwing out all the champagne bottles, that's what you're going to hear. And then number 3, the one that I love the best, and you're going to look at, I know you're going to look at me with, what floors have the booster pumps? No hotel can maintain adequately strong water pressure. So what they do is on different floors, not alternating floors, just different floors, they'll put in a booster pump. You want a room on a floor with a booster pump because when you go into your bathroom and you turn on your shower, it's a fire hose. You want good water pressure.
Wow. What do you care if they put you in a room too close to the elevator? Do you
Not
care
at
about
all.
that? No.
As a fireman, I want to get as close to the stairs as I can.
But the dinging all night doesn't bother you?
It depends on the elevator.
Right.
No, that's not the problem. But what you got to do, though, okay, I'm going to give you a fire story, okay? You're in your hotel room, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you hear the fire alarm go off. What's the first thing you do? And you're sleeping.
Well, if I'm really on my game, I'll put on a robe and slippers and get ready to get out of there.
Okay, so you're dead. What would you do?
I call down and say, is this a real alarm, or is this somebody tripped the alarm?
The very first thing you do is neither of those things. The very first thing you do is you roll out of bed and stay on the floor, because otherwise the smoke is going to kill you, number one. Number two, you go to the door, you crawl to the door, and you put your hand on the door.
Sure.
If the door is hot, you don't open that door. Then you go to the bathroom, and you get a towel, and you wet the towel, and you put it underneath the door, so there's no smoke coming in under the door. Then you go in the bathroom, and you fill the bathtub, because the bathtub and the steam, hot water, will trap all those toxic particulates that are coming in, and then you kiss your ass goodbye.
And I can't do that in my robe and slippers that are provided me for me.
If you stand up first, you won't
Why
get
do
to
I
it.
have to?
If you stand up first and there's smoke in the room,
Yeah.
you'll never get to the
So
robe and
after
slippers.
I've done all of that, and the guy says it was somebody tripped the alarm, I said,
And I go, I got a bathtub of water here, for God's sake.
wow.
On the 6th floor.
Yeah, on the 6th floor, correct.
Wow.
Wow. Is there still a better time to buy air travel than not during the week?
Yeah, when you and I first talked about this, it was midnight, 1 minute after midnight on Tuesday night, like Wednesday morning. And the reason for that in those days was that airfare wars would start over the weekend, and they'd cut and match. And by Monday, they'd be at the lowest fare, right? But then they gave you 24 hours to purchase it in those days. So so all the discount fares that were purchased on Monday, if they weren't purchased by Tuesday, they evaporated, came back in the system, and you strike and get them. Those days are over, because you got to buy them when you buy them now, when you book them. So instead, do it Sunday night, because the computers get all reset on Sunday night.
I'm so fascinated. Is this just years and years and years of asking questions or investigative journalism?
Yeah.
Because you know the answers to questions I didn't know to ask. And
well, let me tell you how that all happened.
Yeah.
I was a correspondent for Newsweek for many years. I was the guy with the suitcase in the trunk of my car. I was always flying to the scene of something, right? And so it dawned on me very early on that nobody was covering travel and transportation where I was living, right, as news. So what I did was I thoroughly inserted myself, because I had the access as a journalist, into the cockpit, into the cabin, into the simulators, and Coast Guard simulators as well for ships. So if I can't understand the process, I can't explain it to you.
Right.
And so I still do that. I still train in the simulators. I used to train like 6 times a year. Now it's like maybe 2.
Wow.
Right? So and I still carry, my bag tags say flight crew on them, because now, am I a licensed pilot? No. But if you and I are on the same plane and both pilots had the fish for dinner and it wasn't really good, you bet. Yeah, and that's happened to me twice.
Wait, whoa. Peter Greenberg, we're landing the plane?
No, Peter Greenberg was actually in the cockpit helping them. We had a number of, 2 things that happened to me. Once in San Diego, and once coming back from Hong Kong to
and
LA.
What do you have to do?
Well, we were on a flight it was Cathay Pacific from Hong Kong to LA, 747, max gross takeoff. Everything was full on that plane, full cargo, full fuel, full passengers. And I'm sitting up in front. I also carried a seat in the cockpit, but I'm sitting in the seat. And all of a sudden, maybe 8 minutes into the flight, we're in the air. Typhoon comes in, they close Hong Kong airport, but that's okay, because we weren't going back. We were heading to LA. However, the woman behind me, massive cardiac arrest. They asked if there were doctors on board. There were 2. There was a thoracic surgeon from Duke on board, and there's another doctor from a hospital in England. So they laid her out in the galley. And what people don't realize is the European airlines and the international airlines have great medical kits on board that can only be opened by the captain, because they have narcotics, they have morphine. You can actually perform minor surgeries in that.
Right.
So they unlocked the medical kit. They brought her into the galley. The guys who knew I was already on the plane, they brought me up into the cockpit. So I was now on company radio, relaying from the company doctors and the surgeons in Hong Kong to the doctors on the plane in the galley. And then we had to dump fuel, about a lot of fuel, and made an emergency landing in Taipei, and they saved her.
Wow.
Yeah. And did I get any mileage for that? I did not.
You know what you should do? Go to Henry Winkler. because it's Peter Greenberg.
Yeah.
Air travel saver.
Part Professor Whoopi.
He's a pilot.
How many times on a domestic flight, if I travel 20 times a year on a domestic flight, how many times is there an air marshal on my flight?
Not many these days.
Really?
No, if you're going to Washington Reagan, or you'll see an air marshal, but you won't know. Actually,
Right,
you
of
do
course.
know. They always here's how you find them. They always pre-board. They're always sitting in 3B with their Dockers and their fanny packs and reading their Tom Clancy novel. And you go, "Oh, hello, Mr. Marshall." He's trying to blend,
with a bear jacket, with a plaid jacket.
Dude, this is timely. This is going to date our episode, and you might not know the
you
answer
go.
because I haven't found
Upside
it
down
online.
plane?
Upside down plane.
Oh, I can tell. I covered
What
that
happened?
story.
Go ahead.
All right. Here's what, and the video just came out about an hour ago. You saw the new video?
I
Okay.
saw one where it catches fire before
That's
the flip.
correct.
Yeah.
Here's what the investigators are looking at. And I've covered every major accident investigation since 1979, right? They have to painstakingly rule every single thing out before they can ever rule any one thing in.
Right.
But what they do know is this. They know exactly where he was over the threshold. They know how fast he was going. They've got great data. They have 80 eyewitnesses, which normally you never have.
Right.
They've recovered the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder. So they've got every cockpit conversation from within the cockpit and from the cockpit for the last 30 minutes of the flight, plus air traffic control cockpit conversations, plus the flight
Visual.
data recorder, which gives you all the parameters of engine, speed, altitude,
Right.
wind, everything else. But from that video, it is clear that it was a hard landing, a very hard landing that collapsed the right landing gear. And when that right landing gear collapsed, the wing broke off, and then he skidded and flipped. Now, the whole idea that this guy could end up perfectly level and inverted is unbelievable. It's it's remarkable. And then everybody got out. First of all, the plane didn't break up, and there was no post-crash fire. The crash crews got out there within 60 seconds
put it out.
and foamed it, right? Because there was so much jet fuel
insane.
pooling in the. So what happened here was amazing. There's no pattern here. It has nothing to do with what happened at Washington Reagan. Had nothing to do with what happened in Philadelphia or in Scottsdale. It just happened. But
And do you think he hit hard because of the wind gust? Do you think he got slammed?
Well, there's wind gust and there's wind shear.
Right.
That's what they're looking at now. A sustained wind gust you can handle. Every plane has its own performance characteristics that based on the aircraft type, what can it fly in safely, right? Can a 747 do 40-knot crosswinds? Probably. Could this plane? Probably not, right? So you're at the margins. But then there's something called wind shear. And wind shear is, all of a sudden, if there's wind at this speed going this way, but wind slower down here, next thing you know, you lose altitude and velocity,
Yeah.
and bam, you're slamming in.
We had that. We were flying into Burbank from Seattle or wherever, and the pilot used, I'll never forget these words, we're going to attempt to land. And attempt was the key word for me. And I'd never, Peter, gotten down to car roof height.
Yeah.
When he accelerated that sucker, we were landing.
bet.
He
Well, the
accelerated
runways
it
there-
and didn't say anything for about 20 minutes. Of
course.
Because I guess he had
10,
to change his
10.
pants. 10? Yeah, it was, and circled and then told us we're going to do it again.
Listen, I'm the guy who did the stories on both San Diego Airport and Burbank Airport, both very convenient airports and both scary as shit. Because
Burbank's scary?
They're short
oh my God,
runways.
the outer marker of the Burbank Airport is on the runway of the Van Nuys Airport. That'll give you an idea of the environment that you're flying in. Not only that, if you're coming in on runway 7, you remember years ago the Southwest plane that ended up in the gas station?
Chevron station.
Oh, yeah, right. Jay Leno had a great line. He said, it landed in the Texaco station, but all the luggage was its shell. I love that line. But the thing is, when you land on runway 7, try it the next time, or just you'll experience it.
I'll ask. Yeah.
No. The minute you land, every brake in the world is being pred on because it's such a short run. But it's a convenient airport, right? San Diego has the steepest approach of any airport in the world.
Which does, San?
San Diego. When you're landing at San Diego, sit on the left side of the plane, you'll see what people are eating for lunch at the El Cortez Hotel. I mean, literally, right? I'm not kidding.
What's the hardest airport in the world to land in? The one where every time they land, the pilot's sphincter.
I'll give you
couldn't
two.
Put a pin up there. Yeah, go ahead.
Bhutan. It's like landing in a salad bowl. And St. Bart's. St. Bart's in the Caribbean, oh my God. You're landing on a roller coaster. It's like you don't get a second chance. Oh, and the other one is Tegucigalpa in Honduras. There are certain airports that the airlines will not let their pilots fly it unless they've flown co-pilot like 20 times because it's just, oh yeah. But that's, every airport's different.
Wow.
But by the way, do accidents happen there more? No, because the pilots are so,
Yeah, they're so vigilant.
Phoenix, with an approach that takes 7 years, that's where complacency can happen.
Yeah.
So It's a balance.
So, is this still the best? You have rated the best bed you ever slept on years ago, and I forget that too. Is it still the same bed?
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, it's the Savoy in London. They make their own beds.
And you can order it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what's it cost?
Well, in those days, it was very expensive. It was about $4,000, $5,000. Now it's much more.
Wow.
But there's another.
You want one, Peter? You want one?
Wait.
Yeah.
There's another bed that's in some hotels now made by a company called Hastons.
Yeah.
They're Swedish. The beds start at $25,000.
Right. Peter, you want one?
I'd rather stay.
Your birthday's coming up.
I'd rather stay.
Your birthday's coming.
So yeah. The other thing is, and this happened to me. I was in Chicago, and I hate to be a putz when I go to a hotel, but I flew in and I got there late and I had a reservation, and I'm standing in line. It's snowing outside, and the guy in front of me is really upset. And he said, "But I had a room. I had a reservation." The guy said, "I'm sorry, we're booked up because of the weather."
Yeah.
And this went on and on for a while. And the poor guy took his coat and he went out into the snow. I walked up and said, "Here's the deal. I'm not leaving. I have a reservation. Not my fault that the plane got in late. I had a reservation. You have a room. Give me that room, because I'm telling you right now, I'm not leaving. I will stand here as long as it takes." And the guy went and got me a room. Was that an ass-butt thing to do, or did they always have? Because it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair.
Here's what I do. Let's say I show up at a hotel, and the guy says, "I'm sorry, we are completely sold out. We have not a single room. I'm sorry."
But you have a room booked, okay?
Okay. But even in that situation, I said, "Let me ask you a question. If the president of the United States were coming right now, would you have a room for him?" "Well, yeah." I said, "I just called the White House. He's not coming. I'll take his room." Now what is he going to say?
It's $72,000. What does he do?
I get the room. I just busted him. They had a room. They hold back.
Is there other way?
Why
is there
is
another
it
way
in
to
their
do it
interest
to
to not give you the room in the first place?
Well, it depends. Remember, there's a tier system. There's a caste system. Some of their mega million-miler travelers, they'll hold that room, even if it means they'll lose the revenue if you don't show up, because they don't want to piss you off.
Right.
Is there a nicer way to do it than saying the president's maybe coming? Is there a
The
different,
vice president.
Is there a different? Do you give the guy? I mean,
No. You do not do that. No.
never.
No. The bottom line is people don't know how to have the art of conversation, right? You don't show up there, gunning for bear. You got to put yourself in their position.
Well,
They've
but I
been
never
beaten
do.
up
That's what
85
I'm
times
saying.
before you got there.
I try and be nice. I wondered if there's a way to say, "Come on, man, there's got to be a room in here."
Well, here's what you do. I'll give you one more thing you can say. This happened to me in Cleveland, by the way. I show up, no rooms available. This is at Hopkins Airport. There was a Sheraton there at the airport. I said, "Okay, I'll take an out-of-order room." What's an out-of-order room? The mirror's cracked in the bathroom. The sink's not working. Right. I just want a bed for the night. I said, "You know what? I'll even pay the full rate. I'll take the out-of-order room. You sign a waiver, you're in."
I'm not going anywhere without Peter Greenberg.
By the way, I'm doing my next trip is going to be called Out of Order Travel. Right. I'm going to save so much money. Peter, you how many miles a year do you do at this point?
About 450,000.
How often are you home?
I'm home up there. I mean, literally, I live in New York and I live in LA. I'll be in LA maybe 5 times a year for 4 days each. I'm in New York probably 10 times a year for 5 days each. The rest of the time I'm...
So what's the trick?
Yeah.
The jet lag trip? I know this is a jet lag trip you use.
Oh, yeah,
And
because I'm
also-
going to Japan. How do I beat the jet lag?
Okay, here's the thing. People don't eat airline food because they're hungry. They eat it because they're bored, right? They put a big tray of stuff in front of you and go, "Well, I got 9 hours. I guess I'll consume all of this." Don't. Most airline food, by definition, is reheated at least twice. That's why they cover it with all that thick sauce to try to maintain moisture, which they can't. And you end up wearing it. So bring on some fruit, right? No alcohol, right? Because alcohol dehydrates the crap out of you.
Right.
And I cheat. I'll have a ginger ale, right? Carbonation, but I'll still
He
have
does ginger ale, and I always say it's a
All right.
throw-up drink.
No.
I grew up with ginger ale.
Sure.
I relate. It's a trigger for me.
No, ginger ale is, if you're nauseous, have a ginger ale, right? Come on. Your grandmother did that.
Sure.
Yeah, but
Right.
not with.
I just like ginger ale.
Me too. I live on
It's
ginger ale.
refreshing. I think it's
Me
a throw-up
too.
drink.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what that means? More for us.
That's right. That's right.
No, so I'll do a ginger ale or a seltzer, right? And then a little fruit. Then what you do on the plane is twice during the flight, you get up and just walk around, right? Otherwise try not to get decapitated by the beverage cart. Then you
Right,
come back.
right.
And if you want to sleep on the plane, you sleep on the plane. You want to work, watch 6 movies, I don't care. The key is what you do when you land. And that's the challenge. No matter where I go, no matter what time I land, I will stay up until midnight local time. That means no heavy lunch. If it means I have to walk down the street and do shoot hoops, whatever, but I'm not going to take that nap. If you take that nap when you land, no one will see you, including you, for 3 days, right? And you won't know. You won't. And then you cycle. You'll wake up the next morning at 6 a.m. You'll sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours. And then you do the exact same thing on the return flight. Now, I can't say it's going to work for you, but that's what I do. And it works for me every
Jerry
time.
Seinfeld told me he does not believe in jet lag.
I don't believe in jet lag either.
Thing. He said, I get someplace. If I'm tired, I lie down. If I'm not, I keep going. If I can tough it out, I tough it out. I don't believe in it.
And then
I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it.
Or do a 20-minute power nap in the car ride from the airport. But don't take the nap.
Two last things. Best translation app. If you're traveling, Jason's in Japan.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
He wants a translation
Japan.
app. But,
Google does a great job.
well, who does?
Google Translate.
Yeah.
All right. They do a good job. And then what's the best app that you can't live without when you travel?
Flightaware.com.
Yep, got it. On my phone.
You already have
as
it?
we
You're in
speak.
it?
Yep.
Isn't that cool?
It's great.
Yeah.
Peter
Because they
Greenberg.
had that whole thing, where's my plane
Yeah,
now?
that's right. That's right.
You're still, I haven't seen you in years, and you still got, you more than got it.
When
And
do we start really travel? Maybe this was the pilot episode.
Do you want to do the negotiation now? Do episode 2 with
Yeah,
Peter Greenberg.
absolutely.
The negotiations.
Yes. Have you told him about the Blase brothers and how they travel?
We did. We had a conversation.
Right,
that
yeah,
no
we
one
did.
did.
Blase brothers.
But you know what? Really travel could be a thing.
It's a
and by
thing.
the way, I'll cut to the chase. Peter, not enough. So there you go, Peter Greenberg. Thank
Can you hit the bell one more time?
Yep, you bet.
Okay, thanks. Oh, tell him
Wow.
what he's
I'm
won.
so
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Remember that game where you had to hit the first guy to hit the
Yeah, but I
hands?
do it
There were
this way.
4
I do it
hands.
this
You
way.
backhanded. Right, yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Peter Greenberg. Unbelievable, right?
Unbelievable.
No, really?
Really.
No,
really.
God.